A match that is dripping with significance, both current and historical. One that these players, this crowd, everybody watching around the world will remember for a long, long time.
England and Australia is one of the great sporting rivals, whether it's Ashes cricket, Ashes rugby league, or any other sport.
For Australian rugby teams, playing against England's a massive deal, always has been.
But everybody knows just what beating England means to Australian sporting stars.
There's a tradition, especially in Rugby World Cups, of Australia and England spoiling each other's parties. So you've got Australia going to Twickenham, 1991.
And that's it! The final whistle goes.
2003, England beat the Wallabies in Sydney with that dramatic drop goal from Johnny Wilkinson.
We're still coming to grips with the fact that England beat us in the World Cup final in '03. It still hurts us. Any time Australia plays England in anything, it's on.
And then you get to 2015, end of the pool stages. England have to win, and Australia would love nothing more than to dump England out of their own World Cup.
So all that goes into the mix, and this was a highly motivated Australian side when they came up against England.
That is it! France are through to the semi-finals. Home time at the quarter-final stage.
After the disaster of the 2011 Rugby World Cup, England needed someone who could bring some discipline to their setup. Stuart Lancaster looked like a really sensible appointment.
Sort of like school teacher vibe. Players got on with him very well. He seemed like the best person for the job, and he brought through a lot of new caps. I remember him giving debuts to Owen Farrell in his first ever game. He was this really pivotal figure now in so many key England players. And so his role was to rebuild English rugby, as tough as that sounds.
The 12 months leading up to the 2015 Rugby World Cup is absolutely chaotic in Australian rugby. Ewan McKenzie is the coach and is expected to take them through. He pulls a plug after some off-field dramas throughout the squad's probably the best way of putting it. So in comes Michael Cheika.
Australia that year under Michael Cheika were sort of coming good. They'd won lots of games. Things had settled down massively.
This now gets very serious. It's a game that they know could go a long way in deciding whether their team is to progress or not.
There's always one, isn't there, at a Rugby World Cup? There's always a pool of death. To have Wales, England and Australia in the same pool, that's a massively difficult group for the hosts to be in from the start. Yet, they were still favourites going in. They were still favourites to qualify. You thought, despite the fact Wales and Australia there, England will be okay.
Time is ticking, and everybody knows it. Valentau comes away, needs support. It is seconds now. Wales can count it down. Davis looks to the referee. Little glance at the clock. He's all aware. Wales are going to win this.
They've done it.
Bigger. Off the field. Wales have done it. They have beaten England at Twickenham in England's World Cup. As if the beating of England was not enough. They have come back. What a reaction from Warren Gatland and for Stuart Lancaster. The taste of defeat. And now the game against Australia here in a week's time puts England right on the edge.
That early loss against Wales really put them on the back foot.
The writing was on the wall. If they didn't win against Australia, they were out of their own World Cup. They would have been the first host nation in history for that ever to happen to.
Stuart Lancaster, an inexperienced coach at international level, suddenly all eyes in the country are on that one game. Could they front up? Could they turn it around?
England versus Australia at a Rugby World Cup with qualification riding on the outcome. The England players looking to their crowd to give them the lift they need to turn this pool on its head.
Australia's record at Twickenham is not great. And then when you add on the pressure of the World Cup and the crowd, I mean, they were roaring from the get-go. You knew, or you thought rather, it was going to be a long afternoon for the Aussies.
I think we can often forget, watching on television or watching as spectators, how much it means to players to hear that anthem, to hear the kind of noise that generates.
It feels, if you're inside that arena, that you know, there's more than just the 15 going one way. There's 80,000 behind them with that noise.
Twickenham to welcome the hosts onto the field. Will it be for the last time in this World Cup?
They were right up for it, the fans. So on the one side you had the tension with England, on the other side you just had sort of this excitement with Australia. They had world-class players like David Pocock, Michael Hooper, Israel Folau.
He was extraordinary. He was a three-code kind of phenom of a player. No one had seen anything like it. The way he made such an impact with his aerial game. When you think about the game that we now watch in 2025, 2026, he was almost ahead of his time, Folau, with how he was able to control the air.
In the first year of the Stuart Lancaster reign, an Australian win tonight, and the hosts' World Cup is over. For them it is now do or die in the pool of death. Foul for England. Kenya. Everybody wants an early touch to settle. Australia are running it from virtually on their own line.
So obviously the crowd are revving up. So what do Australia do off the kick-off to try and sort of wrestle some of that energy back in their direction? They run it from like 10 out from their own line. I still don't understand what was going on.
Good stay. Who offers that left foot option? Farrell. From Hooper. On Farrell. Option.
You've got a massive hit from Michael Hooper and Owen Farrell, and I think that really set the tone for how Australia were going to come into the game.
It was a sort of a statement that if this was a physical battle that England expected to win, Australia wanted to remind them that they'd got another thing coming, I think.
You knew from the outset, like, we are in for a special World Cup pool game.
Australia, England, so always a lot made of the scrum in the build-up.
The scrum has always been the Achilles heel for Australian rugby.
It's one of the cornerstones of the English game, the set piece, the structure. Australia, not so much. 2007,
they had it handed to them in Marseille in France, got bounced out by England. So I guess there was a little bit going in. There may have been a few concerns.
But Michael Cheika had put a huge emphasis on that, bringing in Mario Ledesma.
But what we'd seen under Mario Ledesma coming in as Australia's scrum coach was a real kind of refinement of their technique.
The experience that Australia had through the front row. So they had Scotty CO, Stephen Moore, who was closing on 100 tests at that stage, and Sakopi kept with this man mountain. And they were just on from that first scrum, and you kind of went, oh, this might work out all right at the set piece for Australia.
Marler versus Kepu.
I think Australia really went into that game with England wanting to make a bit of a statement about the strength of their set piece.
CO, Australia's moosehead takes on Cole. And that scrum goes round. Stay there. Foley's kick. Referee decided pressure on from both sides. Mike Brown, flag is up. And it will be Australia throw. Foley lets England know about it.
They'd seen that Johnny May was up quite high on the left wing side, so there was a lot of space in behind him, and Foley found that, and it was a perfectly weighted kick. And Mike Brown, who, very accomplished fullback, he could have let it roll over the sideline, would have been an England throw, tried to keep it in, and just put his foot on the line.
Really enjoyed the little spray that he gave Brown afterwards as well, just to let him know that the Wallabies were here and in the game.
But it ends up being a really pivotal kick because Australia then find a way just to pin England in their own half.
To the corner, Australia with the first moment of pressure. Look for far, let the line out. And Simmons too.
Israel Folau got hit by Mike Brown. You know, you've got to credit Mike Brown for that. He made the mistake by stepping on the sideline. Showed the tenacity of Mike Brown. Thought, you know, I need to come back and offer something here, having given away a line out to Australia.
Truthfully, the defence was really good to rush in and sort of jam and shut down that angle on him. He couldn't quite get away. Maybe could have gone away a little quicker to the outside.
He couldn't quite get his pass away in time there, Folau, but also some marks for Mike Brown there, who made up for his earlier mistake by really shutting that space down and getting in tight on Folau with the tackle.
I mean, you just saw there that England needed to be at their best defensively to try and contain the guy that was just an absolute freak.
Australia have been working so hard with the former Argentina hooker now, their scrum coach. And here comes Horn off that wing. Getting advantage being played. Foley. Getting her again to Hooper. Here comes Morgan and Robshaw. Still the advantage for Australia. Seo waits. Might as well see if this develops. Pocock now gets hands on ball on the loose. Vardy. It's England with all the tackles inside their own 22. And now the crossfield kick. Folau rising. That's gone forward.
Israel Folau, you know, how often had we seen him take those kind of high balls? He played some AFL as well, you know, that he was just standout in that kind of game. So yeah, it was a bit of a surprise.
He's got that height advantage over Anthony Watson. Watson does really well to kind of stay in the fight, force the mistake there. But yeah, very uncharacteristic of Folau, who was so good in that area.
So then England sort of settled into the kicking a little bit, and they try and put pressure on Izzy with the high ball, but Australia getting a chance to take the first shot at goal. Nice little nerve settler for Bernard Foley.
Well, it's Australia setting the tone here. And it's Bernard Foley. For the Wallabies. If it goes over, which it does, they have the points to show for their early pressure.
So he gets a chance just to settle into it, knock over that first shot on goal, and they were off.
England will look to get some territory and put pressure back on.
Kurandrani. Scott Vardy came from quite late 29 when he made his debut.
On the goal!
Almost fixture since then. And here's a man with a second Wallaby life, Matt Giteau.
Like some nations, like New Zealand, like England, Australia have introduced a rule where you had to play domestic rugby in Australia in order to play for the Wallabies. And so this concept appeared called the Giteau Law, because it was Matt Giteau, who'd played a lot of tests for Australia, but under this new law was not allowed to play for the Wallabies because he was playing for Toulon. But I think Michael Cheika realised we can't go into a Rugby World Cup with our best available to us. We have to find a way to have the likes of Matt Giteau available.
You had to have a certain number of caps, I think it was 60 caps you needed to have to be able to be pulled in from around the world. So Matt Giteau was one, tick. Drew Mitchell was the other. These two best buddies who were overplaying their club rugby with Toulon in France. So they found a way to get in two of the most experienced blokes.
It just enabled them to be the sum of their parts, really, and gave us a real fillip going into that tournament.
The Toulon sun has really suited Giteau. As we see, possession is massively in favour of Australia. Giteau gives Foley the out as well on the kicking game, so takes the pressure off his number 10.
Young's pass to Jonathan Joseph, back to Farrell, lovely offload, Anthony Watson! England now into the match.
You felt England needed someone who added something extra, but you know, there's no accounting for pace, and that's what Anthony Watson brought to England.
There's Joseph again. England delighted to have him back in their back line.
Yeah, look, it was frenetic. I think a lot of kind of end-to-end play. I think England, actually, to their credit, played with a bit more width than maybe people were expecting. You saw good offloads from their tight forwards like Joe Launchbury and Tom Wood as well down the touchline for one break. But it was frantic.
England get the portals coming back on the Aussie side.
Penalty. And this is a move that's been reserved. Clever play behind. What an offload from Owen Farrell. Last-ditch tackle from Foley, much needed.
Grudge.
3 in a row, Watson, Brown, Farrell. Should go the wheel of the scrum here if England can get a right wheel up. Looks like a left.
Hooper pops up. He was concerned. All right to me. Australia in trouble in that scrum.
Australia knew they had to be careful about their discipline, giving away penalties when you got Owen Farrell on the other team. Going into that game against Australia, only Johnny Wilkinson had scored more points at Twickenham than Owen Farrell. There was, of course, the Owen Farrell-George Ford debate coming into that World Cup about England, but, you know, Farrell under pressure, there was no one better on the international stage. He was the best in the business.
Farrell to equalise, surely. 3-3. 12 fascinating minutes.
It would more often than not result in 3 points.
Line. Set.
Both teams were going to look for different ways to try and probe, find weaknesses, but in the very early stages of that match, you know, it looked like, you know, this was going to be a match that was going to be even the whole way through.
Stay wide, behind the ball.
No, he doesn't. And Marler and Cole, the England props, with the tackle. There's the Australian loose head, Seo. Close here for Australia.
Yozat!
Genia. Gitto, a little bit of Gitto magic. Well, he goes along with a pass to Beale and Folau. England have defended well, but they still need to. As Folau offloads to find Gitto. Is there a way through? If there is, he'll find it. Wasn't on that occasion. Pocock, always looking to offload. Gone backwards. Kurandrani. See how Pocock carries the ball there. Looking for that chance to pass. Douglas. Kenya. Foley. Here comes Gitto again. Folau. Watson's tackles. No joy at the moment for Australia down that flank.
Yozat!
Kenya. Hooper. He went in hard on Farrell earlier. He gets a bit of his own medicine there. This is Kepu. Beale. Australia doing really well to keep this going. Now, Foley, little dummy. Foley's going through! Oh, a score from the far half. Speed of thought indeed. The Australian way.
Yeah, almost 20 minutes in, Australia picked up the first try of the match, and you've got to say, it felt like it was coming. They were playing with a lot of continuity, good phase play.
Australia probing, moving England's defence around, some lovely ball handling.
I think for Sekope Kepu, the tight head prop, to flick that offload to Curtly Beale, that really made England's defence pause. You can almost see Ben Youngs drifting out because he's worried about Tavita Kurandrani, and it leaves this massive hole where can Joe Launchby have the pace? I mean, Launchby's a very rangy lock who can shift, but he's unable to get across to Foley in time. Foley carves through that hole, steps Brown to score. Just a real good example of kind of tired defending, but also Australia being able to keep the ball alive and create uncertainty in England's defence.
Phase after phase after phase round to the left. They just keep swinging the same way, same way, same way. There's some smart little pick and goes in there. The key thing to this is that they spent 8 months prep working on just the attacking patterns and plays for this one game. So they held stuff back throughout the Rugby Championship in 2015. They held stuff back in the early pool of game that they had as well, with England in mind solely. So this was 8 months of beautiful work coming together, and Bernard Foley gets the first score.
It's all Foley at the moment on the scoreboard for Australia. Can he make it 10-3? Oh, yes he can.
Bernard Foley didn't feel like first choice for the Wallabies going into the World Cup. Quade Cooper felt like the guy they'd probably go to. He had an indifferent day kicking in the previous match for the Wallabies, so Bernard Foley was given the start.
Picking up Grani again at the restart. Gedia.
You stay 90. You stay there.
He's not the tallest, but he will be feeling as tall as anybody on that pitch at the moment, the way it's going for him, Bernard Foley.
Having Giteau there allowed Foley to play with a bit more freedom than maybe he usually did, because he knew that he had the support of a guy like Matt Giteau, who had of course played in that position himself and was very accomplished playing in European conditions as well.
So as this game goes on, it becomes more and more apparent that the Australian scrum is like on fire.
Fine. Set.
Saying yesterday, Australia eliminated all the external noises of the scrum. They're just working on their own thing, working with the Desma, and working very well indeed. That's the benefit of all their hard work.
Coles viewed as a really reliable tight head. Marler was an explosive scrummager who also offered a lot around the park with his ball carrying. They were both viewed as very good props.
To shift those blokes around, that ain't easy to do. Again, on a heavy night at Twickenham, and all of a sudden the Australian scrum's firing, you're thinking, what is happening? How is this happening?
Initially, the impression was that Joe Marler was just absolutely dominating, but actually the longer the scrums went on, the more the touch judges were analysing them, and they could see that Marler's angles were a little bit off, scrummaging inwards, not quite driving straight. That's when the tide started to turn. That's when Australia started winning these scrummaging penalties.
Fine. Set.
Just a year in charge. Turn it around. Not just the play, but the culture too. And certainly the scrum, although that has been moving for some time in the right direction.
You could sense the shift in the mood there. The scrum was such a weapon for England in this game. It was viewed as one area where, historically, they could go after Australia.
I think Australia knew that if they could get parity, not only parity but an edge there themselves, that would change the whole mentality of the game.
Youngs, if he had his time again, would have got that out quicker. Usable possession. And those are the tight decision-making calls that count so much in these games. Every single decision you make will have a bearing on this final result after 80 minutes.
6 for 6. And the National League at the front of the line out again, but this time it all adds up. There's Pocock. Carries well there, covered a lot of ground. Simmons on the floor. Douglas. Foley switching the point of attack. That's interesting. Bill back to Foley. It's more than interesting. It is a beauty. And for England now, this is a sporting crisis.
Yeah, Australia's second try is a type of try I think that really would please an attack coach, you know. Felt like straight off the training park, just a simple change of direction, a simple try executed really well.
So it's just like the most beautiful thing when you see guys doing this at pace, and it's all intentional, and everyone knows where everyone's going to go, and just the way he swings around, and Bernard Foley just goes inside, no look, curtly at 1,000,000 miles an hour on the most perfect line, goes through untouched, and then just a little simple draw and pass to Foley, who goes in for his second. He's second at Twickenham. All the points are against the number 10's name. It's insane.
Bernard Foley 17, England 3. Amazing start for him.
Incredible dexterity, and they're through that in a flash and over. England had just left chasing shadows. It was a beautifully worked try.
And Foley is having a dream day.
Australia's first half had left people in shock, I think, around the ground. It looked like England were shot at that stage.
I think there was genuine fear that England were going to go out. It had been spoken about so much in the build-up about the kind of shame of being the first host nation to go out of your own Rugby World Cup in the pool stages, and all of a sudden you're down by 2 tries.
Wales, of course, watching this. They play Australia here next Saturday. Australia win,
13.
Wales go through with the Wallabies. England get a penalty seconds before the interval. Youngs wants the tempo, he wants the speed to try and grab a score.
And down now!
Pocock's technique again.
Incredible.
He's got muscles on muscles.
My time, Garrett.
Just when you've won that ruck, it's taken a Herculean effort to do that. Guess who's back in? Pocock, and then it's Hooper.
Tom Youngs with a clear out. Ben Youngs with the pass. Mike Brown. So much better for England if they could cut this Australian lead in half before half-time. But they will not be able to do that. That is half-time. Previously, a host has never gone out of a World Cup at the pool stage, but England are 40 minutes away from doing that.
Whereas Australia had shown twice that they were able to carve them open, they were dominating at the breakdown, and England's scrum was starting to creak. So no, I think there was a genuine sense of tension and real worry that what was about to come for England in that second half.
I think when you go into a game that you know you have to win, you're down 17-3 at half-time, you cannot help but feel the pressure. You know, they would have done their prep, they would have had their plans in place for that kind of scenario. But you know, that's a big scoreline in a must-win game. And you're up against an Australian team that were playing with huge confidence.
There was a feeling that you know, unless England scored next, their World Cup was over.
I think on commentary, Miles Harrison said at one point, you know, England were being dazzled by Australia's backline. And it looked a bit like that. It looked on attack that Australia were playing at a different level to England, and that was a big, big problem for them.
Australia holding all the aces here. 17-3 they lead, and Beale, their replacement in the first half for winger Rob Horne. Both 11s having left the field now. Australia's Horne, England's May. Beale nearly onto that kickoff.
Lock in. Stay, 7.
Forward.
Up,
Fly
stop.
It was a very late change for England at the very end of half-time, almost as the players were running out. George Ford came on to replace Johnny May, who tweaked a calf, and I think something like that can maybe unsettle a team.
Well, as the team came back out, the England team came back out for the second half, it looked like Johnny May was going to run out onto the pitch. He was hobbling very heavily on his left side. It looked like a calf injury, so that's meant we've now got this England reshuffling.
Ford, very talented fly half. He and Owen Farrell played a heck of a lot of rugby together right from they were kids growing up. So, you know, I don't think there was any concern by having George Ford out there.
And at that stage, England needed tries. They were so far behind. They needed an attacking duo of, you know, the same level as the Foley-Giteau midfield duo for Australia. And there was a hope that those two could bring something extra to the game.
Scrum on the move that time. Power seemed to be coming from England. Pocock did well. Very well. Launch play. Hands on left. Wood taps it back. Australia might have been involved as well. Ford to Farrell. Barrett back at 13 where he played against Australia. The position of outside centre. So heroically, last autumn. Mike Brown. Pocock in there again.
Oh, it's masterful. Pocock is arguably the best in the world at timing to contest the ruck.
Australia had gone into that match with Michael Hooper and David Pocock as like twin foragers on the ground.
It was viewed as a massive threat, and I think Michael Cheika deserves a lot of credit for actually deciding to play the two of them together. He'd only done it twice before, I think, against the All Blacks and against Fiji.
England had gone with Chris Robshaw.
Now, you might say Chris Robshaw can play open side flanker very well, but can he play open side flanker when you've got Michael Hooper and David Pocock in the other team?
The one guy who could have competed in that area. It was Stefan Armitage, who was playing in France at the time. England had no Giteau law to bring him back, no Armitage law, so he wasn't available to the side.
Bind. Set.
Sure, Pocock will be first to say about Hooper's role and vice versa. Penalty at the scrum for Australia. They remember Marseille. Third penalty at the scrum for Australia.
None of us expected this. None of us expected England to give up 5 penalties at the scrum against Australia at Twickenham in the Home World Cup. I mean, that just wasn't a storyline coming in.
This is an Australian side that they bullied at Twickenham a year beforehand. This time it was Australia doing the bullying.
England were guilty of being unlawful at the scrum. I mean, whether they were or not, it doesn't matter. Australia were winning the decisions. They had the referee in their pocket at scrum time.
Foley's way. That takes it beyond the 2 tries and 2 conversions. England making changes.
Stuart Lancaster eventually has had enough off the back of that England scrum being on roller skates, and he makes changes up front.
They just couldn't get their game going, they couldn't get their power game going, and you did feel that they needed to make some changes. They needed to get new people out there. Ben Youngs wasn't having a great day, wasn't having his best test match for England. He looked a little bit indecisive behind the pack, but that can happen when you're not winning collisions, winning turnovers, when things aren't going for you. Obviously the scrums weren't going England's way either, but yeah, you felt England needed to try something different. They needed a plan B, because plan A certainly wasn't working for them.
Jeff Parling, the new man, back over the ball, his brother Billy now out of the tournament. There's bonus point, try against Fiji, might count for zip. If England don't win this, might count for a lot if they do win this. Wigglesworth, Ford. Try and find those tries. It was so evident in the Six Nations. Joseph, Farrell, Brown, Watson. Forced to slip and catch. Wigglesworth, Vunipola, Farrell, England have men. Joseph, hand comes in from Foley. I think he was trying to catch it.
The white man.
Hard to argue that was deliberate, really. Referees called that just a knock on. Crowd don't like it. But that second attempt from Foley proved he was trying to intercept that.
Butchered by England. It was Dan Cole that stopped Foley intercepting it.
Ford and Brown. Joseph, here comes Farney. Now it's back for the knock-on as England are driven backwards.
Hindsight's a wonderful thing. England would love to be shifting that ball quicker. I think it's Jonathan Joseph who gets the pass with Foley bearing down on him. If that's a quick catch pass and you get the ball out past Foley, the space to attack, and maybe England score or try to get back in the game. As it turned out, you had this kind of comical incident where you were questioning, was it an intentional knock-on by Foley, or actually did it look like an intentional knock-on because he was impeded by Cole?
Was it a genuine attempt to catch the ball? I think it was. I think he might have even caught it on the second grab if he hadn't been slightly held back by Dan Cole. So I think, you know, it could have gone against England as a penalty, that, not against Australia.
Could easily have been a yellow for Dan Cole. So in the end, French referee Romain Pratt shrugs his shoulders. No cards for anyone.
We're all wrapped up in the Twickenham world at the moment, but just imagine what is happening in Wales as they watch this. Australia win. They go through, Wales go through. Farrell's down again. Beale with the tackle.
Use it!
No loss of speed having Beale up the field for Hall. Oh, the quality of decision making. Indeed, execution on that try for Foley in the first half. Holds up an arm, the captain, it's his team to hold their line, keep their discipline here.
Contact initials by the goal defender.
Good territory for England. Can they get the points as Ford finds Wood? Parling, Ford, Vunipola again. Hurt the Lions.
Advantage.
Got the Australians with the Lions in
Assist
2013.
number 6, not the lead.
Vunipola carries like that. Rockstar. Farrell to Morgan and Barrett.
Who's in defence? Hooper.
Wigglesworth to Ford. And they managed to work some space, maybe. Wood is waiting outside. Anthony Watson! England on their way.
Had to score. We've had to wait 55 minutes for an England player to run so hard and determined to get over the line.
The England fans inside Twickenham had to wait a long time, didn't they? 55 minutes or so for an England try. And Anthony Watson, who was probably one of their best on the day, he was always going to be probably the most likely try scorer.
I think the key to it is that you get a couple of really good passes by George Ford and Joe Launchbury, able to shift the ball wide quickly, and that gives Watson the space that he needs to make the final steps and to get over.
The way he shifts gears and cuts back inside, he got through Foley easily. I don't think anyone in the world would have caught him with that amount of space to go to the line, but it was just that little burst of acceleration. He just kind of went bang.
England just hadn't been able to create that space, and I think that's down to their lack of threatening ball carriers throughout the game. They weren't able to suck in enough defenders to create the room for their wingers out wide. This was a rare occasion where they did do that.
You know, they really, really did need it because they were staring down the barrel at that point.
At that moment, the country thought they might be back in it.
And every point certainly matters, and Farrell has delivered 2 more here. 10 between the teams. Australia about to make a double chase. Nick Phipps comes on at scrum half. Off goes Genia.
It was a slight surprise that Genia was taken off for Nick Phipps. Was Genia injured? Did he have a knock? Not sure. Looked like a tactical replacement, which was a big call from Michael Cheika because Genia was having an outstanding game, running the show really well for Australia, and a lot of pressure on Nick Phipps coming in on the big stage like that. You know, had to deliver for Australia.
Australia tantalisingly close to what could be the match-winning score. Beale and Moore carries, looks for the offload, just had a glance. There goes Simmons. This time is the Australian attack going to break down. Folau. England surge up in defence. Phipps. Oh, that's loose. That could go anywhere. Ford's onto it. Beale goes back. Great defence from England. Beale is caught. Released pretty quickly, but it's the penalty.
You didn't get that kind of erratic passing from Will Genia when he was on the field. And Nick Phipps is a really good scrum half, but to have back-to-back balls like that go to ground, that lose you momentum, that lose you about 50 metres with England then marching up the field and getting the turnover because Australia go off their feet at that ruck. That is another sign of the pressure that was on Australia.
For the first time in the game, England were getting some ascendancy, putting some pressure on Australia, which they'd struggled to do all test match.
Australia was still in control of the scoreboard, but England were fighting to stay in the match. They knew that the whole World Cup was on the line. They were throwing everything into it. They were desperate.
Bit of fatigue maybe setting in for the Wallabies as well. Those ball carriers were perhaps not putting their hands up, and all of a sudden Australia looked like a team that were feeling the moment and under a bit of pressure.
And it's worse for England. It got to 23. It's not now. England 13, Australia 20. We have just over 15 minutes to play.
For England to kick the penalty, to cut the gap to a score, England had looked dead and buried. England weren't creating a lot of attacking chances. They looked really flat, and Australia, through a couple of mistakes, was sort of letting England back into the game, and that cranks up the tension from a Wallabies perspective.
Australia, England at its rawest here. Phipps again to Foley. Foley once more. Lost the ball in the tackle. It wasn't happening to Australia in the first period.
Yeah, you thought finally 3/4 of the game in, England now within 10 points. You thought, okay, they're going to lift now. They're going to show the true England. They're going to show the England that all their fans want to see. They're going to find a way back here against Australia.
Wide. Set. Another battle of the number 10s.
Of course, England have to get the draw first. Watson out on the full. Maybe disgusted with himself because he's added so much, certainly in this second half.
When you start chasing a game, you know, maybe start forcing the odd pass, whatever, England lose their shape a little bit and, you know, but they're trying to play catch up, so they've got to start trying things and, you know, that's perhaps when errors come. You know, it's a difficult situation to be in. You've got the mental battle with the knowing that you got less than 20 minutes to go and if you don't find a way back, you're out of your World Cup. All that stuff's in play for England and, you know, so perhaps that plays in my games as well in terms of the error count for England.
Will have needed territory to get up the pitch, squeeze Australia into a mistake, get a vital penalty.
Australia have grabbed the territory back. Oh, it's getting very complicated. That looked a bit high.
Sean, please check on the 12
Referee wants to check it. Ball was lost forward, no doubt about that. England supporters celebrating the touchline, but it might not matter.
Please, Sean, can we have a look about the tackle without the ball on 12 goal, please?
Owen Farrell, you know, known as an abrasive, defensive type of back. There aren't many of them. You know, he's one of them, comes from a, you know, Dad played rugby league. Dad was in the coaching staff for England. His tackle technique, Owen Farrell's have been brought into question previously.
And there's sort of this calamity as they put this backline movement into play, and I think Giteau runs sort of an unders line. He gets hammered by Owen Farrell, who is one of the best hitters, one of the best defensive backs the game has ever seen. So he gets checked hard off the ball. Then Sam Burgess, who's come onto the field, comes across real quick, maybe a touch too quick, and catches Michael Hooper high. And you're kind of watching that as the replays start to kick in. You think one of the two of them are probably going to go.
Referee Roman Poit could have taken action against both of them, but Owen Farrell's was the first offence, so he was the guy who got the card.
I actually have a bit of sympathy for him. It's such a bang play that he can't properly see who's coming in behind. He clearly makes contact and it is a penalty. Was the yellow card harsh? Possibly. You could argue that Sam Burgess's tackle on Michael Hooper was even worse around his neck.
He tackled clearly the man without the ball. He didn't watch anything, just tackled the man without the ball. That's a yellow card against 10 white.
Is he not in front though, blocking first?
Well, Michael Hooper, who's now captain of Australia, is not going to argue with that.
You never watch, and you kill Lias.
Is it from to the person that got the ball?
Please.
So what about the one on me up there? No?
Well, nothing that arguing will do for Owen Farrell. He's got to go 10 minutes, the rest of the game.
He got done, and it was such a massive moment in the game because you felt up until that moment England was still in this game. You felt they had more to give. If they could just wrestle back possession from Australia, they could find a way back potentially. But the yellow card, it just seemed to say, that's it. What can they do from here?
Out of the competition, making history. Foley. How narrow those posts must feel. How wide he made them look in the end. The Wallabies have come here, leaving nothing to chance. They want it done today.
Stay, goal,
Foley to Brown, and England now have barely one finger on the cliff edge.
That game, the level of disappointment was on a scale that was hard to believe, and people started voting with their feet.
Look, I think it's a stark realisation that they didn't want to see the final whistle. They didn't want to see Chris Robshaw and Stuart Lancaster giving these interviews to the media about why it hurt so much to go out of the World Cup. They didn't want to see that humiliation. Look, I don't blame fans for paying a lot of money for those tickets, for seeing what they saw and thinking that they had enough.
Penalty scrum.
Yes, England fans are now leaving.
Foley. Again. They know now.
So then you've got this situation where you're down on the scoreboard against Australia, staring down the barrel of being bailed out of your own Rugby World Cup. And yeah, they voted with their feet, some of them.
Is it another try to finish, to really rub it in? Phipps. Slipper. He hasn't scored in his 70 internationals now, but he certainly has helped change the perception, the reality of the Australian scrum. James Slipper.
Mike Brown's fight there at the end, just a little bit too late.
Burgess on, Watson goes. England still trying, but they've got to score now. Take the conversion, then score again. It's under 2 minutes. Easter. Knowing more than any other player on the field that this will be his World Cup goodbye. Wigglesworth, Ford, Joseph, Watson. Tamura's got it. In come Australia again. Punch after punch they landed the breakdown. Hooper, one of the major reasons. He finds Foley. Foley to animated Cooper. He's got Matt Gitto outside. Gives it to Gitto. Gitto to round it up. Australia have dumped the host.
That was a broken England team by that point, and Australia rounded it off with a beautiful try.
Who's there waiting to land that final dagger on England? It is Matt Gitto, who made his debut, his Wallabies debut at that same ground many years before, who's had the law named after him that enables him to come back in with Australian rugby to score that try, and off goes Gits down the right with the swan dive. Game, set, match.
You had the elder statesman of the team, the player who faced England back in 2003, scoring what was the final nail in the coffin at Twickenham in 2015. It was a perfect moment for Australian rugby.
You talk about, an exclamation mark to sum up an entire match. That was it, and a famous rugby moment for Australia at Twickenham, and just the looks on their faces. I mean, job done, big time for Australia.
The final nail in the England coffin.
And it is now Australia's biggest ever win over England at Twickenham. If they needed any more icing. Foley makes it even better, or for England even worse. It's over, the match and England's World Cup. The hosts are out, and with a game still to play. For England, the unthinkable has happened. For Australia, they have done it. Not only is their progression guaranteed, they have delivered the knockout blow to one of their great sporting rivals.
So on the one side, you've got the Wallabies, their biggest ever win against England at Twickenham. Massive result for them. World Cup really going places. And then on the other side, it is utter desolation for England.
Watching Lancaster and Robshaw have to front up in a press conference and talk about how disappointed they were. The fact that England then had to go and play Uruguay in Manchester a week later, knowing that they were already out of their own tournament.
This is the scenario that no one wanted. An enormously well-funded campaign bundled out of their own tournament, the first host nation to ever miss the quarterfinals.
You felt desperately for coach and captain, even though England had been second best against Wales and Australia and probably deserved to go out. You still felt for them because you knew that what they were going through must be unbelievably tough.
Stuart, you're out of your own World Cup with a game to spare. Can you even begin to describe the emotions right now?
Not really, no, just gutted. Gutted for all the fans and everyone at home, and you know, I don't say really because everyone's put so much effort in and the sport's been fantastic, but you know, I'm sorry we'll let everyone down.
I'm not sure that game in itself was the problem for England. I think it was the bigger picture stuff was the problem for England.
We all had our words to write at that point and our poison pens were out. It was a record home defeat against Australia, the end of England's home World Cup with a game to spare. Chris Robshaw was deposed as captain, Dylan Hartley brought in, Sam Burgess went back to Rugby League, and a couple of other players in the side, Brad Barrett, Tom Young's never played for England again. So, you know, that defeat had consequences and it was a tough one for a lot of people concerned with English rugby.
Full credit to some of the players for how they took that moment and rebuilt it. So Chris Robshaw hung around for a couple of years at the start of the Eddie Jones era, was a key contributor, not as captain, but as a player in that squad. Andy Farrell was part of England's coaching team, and look at the success he's gone on to with Ireland and with the British and Irish Lions as well. That moment was horrendously tough for a lot of players and for a lot of people, but it was also the making of them in some ways, given what they then went on to achieve.
Michael, you're not afraid to show your emotions when you watch your team. What are they right now, knowing you're into the last 8?
I'm a bit calmer now, you know, the game's finished. I want to thank all the Australian supporters. It's not easy to come here and out cheer the English, but there were times there where we really did that, and I really appreciate it. Hope we make you proud throughout the rest of the tournament.